and let you know we are 52 Weeks with Jesus. James Merritt closing this one out. We are less, after today, we'll have less than 10 of these left. And then the next one, already getting ready for it. Same guy, 52 weeks through the Bible. Looking forward to this one as well. I've really enjoyed these. Hope nobody at all may watch these. I know my mama does, at least. You may not get anything out of it, but I have got a lot out of this book. I feel like I've really learned a lot, really grown through this study. But we're going to do part 43 of 52 Weeks with Jesus, and this one is titled Always Available, Always Accessible. And again, it's another very familiar passage of Scripture, but I'm going to go ahead and read it. We're going to read Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. So starting in the 25th verse, it says, And a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind, and touched his garment. For she said, If I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body she was healed of that plague. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that virtue had gone out of him, turned him about in the press, and said, Who touched my clothes? And his disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, Who touched me? And he looked round about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what was done in her, came and fell down before him, and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, Daughter, thy faith hath made thee whole. Go in peace, and be whole of thy plague. That is found in, Mark chapter 5, verses 25 through 34. And we're going to get into the book here. And I told you we'd get to the pastor friend of mine, and we'll get to it pretty quick right here in the first sentence. It starts off with close enough to touch. It says, Have you ever gotten close to someone famous or someone you admired, and you just wanted to reach out and touch them? I have. And before he goes into his I have, let me explain to you my I have and who I would have tagged in all of these 52 Weeks with Jesus. I'd probably tag you in every video I ever do. Have you ever want to respond to my friend request that I sent you? But if you recall, some of you, especially the ones that are tagged in these videos, will remember back when the coronavirus first started back late March, we did a hashtag, Facebook Gospel Singing. And we went for a while there, several weeks, where every day one of us was on there, hashtag Facebook Gospel Singing. And we attempted to get a few, I guess the proper word would be famous or more well-known people in the gospel community to play along with our hashtag Facebook Gospel Singing. And I may or may not have been guilty of, at the time, Facebook stalking C.T. Townsend and tagging C.T. Townsend in posts of Facebook Gospel Singing and trying to call out C.T. Townsend to do a hashtag Facebook Gospel Singing. As far as sending C.T. Townsend a friend request, which is still hanging there, CT. If you're watching this, CT, press accept. I'm not that crazy. You can press accept and accept my friend request. But what I understand, and we'll read about the one that this guy talks about, that James Merritt talks about, and Ashley remembers the night, and I'm sure Allison and Anna and Ethan probably do, because I text them immediately. I had sent Facebook message after Facebook message after Facebook message to C.T. Townsend, and I don't know if he finally got around to seeing one of them or I had just bugged him to death, but he responded, and it was like, oh my goodness, C.T. Townsend just responded to one of my messages. And I said, Ashley, yelled for her. She was in bed because it's like 10 something at night, and she come around there. I said, look at this. Held up my phone, and it was a response from C.T. Townsend. Sent screenshots, all that. Shout out to my cousin Miranda, who was friends with Amber, who is the owner, lead singer, whatever you call it, of 11th Hour. She did accept my friend's request from 11th Hour, and she did send me a video to use for the hashtag thing we had going. And we all can see it and think about somebody that we probably think highly of, that we would like to get to meet if we had a chance. But anyway, let's move on into the story, and we're going to talk about his story of who he wanted to meet. It says, this is James Merritt writing again. It says, a friend and I went to Augusta National Golf Club to watch the Masters tournament. We were standing in a rope line that was only about 3 foot wide, a corridor where players walked from one tee to the next. I looked up, and here came a young phenom who had taken the golf world by storm. His name was Tiger Woods. My heart was about to come out of my chest. He got 1 foot from me, and I started to reach out to pat him on the shoulder when he looked me square in the eyes as if to say, don't you even think about it. Later, I thought about how foolish I'd been and how stupid I felt. I didn't want an autograph or a conversation. I just wanted to reach out and touch his shirt. Since then, I've wondered how many times I have been surrounded by people who just needed to know that I was aware they were there, that somebody cared about them, but I was too focused on the game I was playing to pay any attention. And I put a big star on that one. How often would we see celebrities, or maybe it's not even a celebrity, somebody we highly respect, whatever it is, and we just want that attention. We want them to recognize that we exist. How many times in our life are there people, and Jeremy by far is nothing special. Jeremy is no celebrity. I am no anything that I, in my eyes, would think anybody would want to be around me. My wife and kids don't even know why they want to be around me half the time. But there's people out there who just want to be recognized. They just want somebody to say, I know you're there, and I care about you. And maybe we don't do anything. Maybe we can't do anything. I think of Job. At one time, Job, right after he had lost everything, he had 3 friends come, and it says for 7 days they just sat there with him. They didn't say anything. They didn't try to put their 2 cents in it. They just sat there. And sometimes we need to be that person who is there for others, but too often we're too focused. It says here, but I was too focused on the game I was playing to pay attention. We get too wrapped up in self or our own goals and desires to reach out to those others. And it made me think of, and I don't know why, but I'm going to share this story and then we're going to move on through. But it made me think of when I worked at Dungarvin in Birmingham, and this was before I was saved. And y'all that know the story of my past know that I wanted to be something special. I wanted power. I wanted a name. I wanted people to look to me like I was the stuff. And I remember one time, and it's always stuck with me ever since, we were in my office, and a staff person came in and had a problem. And she started to tell me the problem that was going on at the home she worked at. And about 2 minutes into it, I started saying, well, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. I started telling her, this is what you need to do. And she said, that's your problem. You don't listen. And that really hit me, and I think we need to take that into account in our Christian walk of just recognizing others are there and letting them speak their piece, or just hear people out, hear what they have before we start telling people this is how you need to fix your problem, or this is what your problem is. I tried to fix this lady's problem without even giving her an opportunity to tell me what she needed. And that may or may not be related to this, but to me it was, so I added it in there. Okay, moving back into the book. It says the 5th chapter of Mark's Gospel describes a woman who came to know beyond a shadow of doubt that someone noticed her and cared about her. Then we're going to move into the next heading that says, encountering one who helps. Traveling with his disciples, Jesus is in the midst of a bustling crowd. People are pushing and shoving just to get a look at him, just to be able to tell their grandchildren that they had saw Jesus. Parents are holding up their children so they can see him. Perhaps there are people who, like Zacchaeus, have climbed trees just to look into his face. And think about how messed up we have got society and got things so screwed up in our world now. We can't get, we can't get people to come to church on a Sunday morning, but they'll run a field on A-Day to try to get a signature by Nick Saban. I'm an Alabama fan, I'll admit, but we can't come to church and worship the one who created the one we're running after, trying to get their signature. That's another whole other story, whole other myth. But that's that's the society we live in today. We have this thing so backwards, so twisted around. It says, along the rope line, caught up in the bustle of the crowd, is a woman with a terrible disease that's sapping the life out of her. A continuous flow of blood is slowly but surely killing her. Now let's stop right there, because we can put ourselves in this story, each and every one of us. This says she had suffered for 12 years. Am I getting ahead of myself? Well, if I do, we'll just back up. So she had suffered this condition for 12 years. She had went to every doctor. She had went to every physician. She had went to every magician. She had spent everything she had trying to find the cure to her problem. And in the book, I noticed, I liked how he wrote this. It said, a continuous flow of blood is slowly but surely killing her. Each and every one of us, at some point in our life, or maybe it's you now, sin is slowly killing you. It's not a, you go to sleep one night fine, you wake up one day and you realize, I hate when Zoom does this. Hopefully we're still alive. If not, I've learned that means the devil gets upset that we're doing Zoom. But anyway, I feel like all of us can fit into this. We're slowly dying to sin. And like this woman that says, went to every physician, spent all that she had in sin, we will go to every length to fill a hole. We'll go spend everything we can to try to feel better or try to get what only God can give us. So we can each find ourselves in this story of the woman with the issue of blood. It says, in all the pushing and shoving, no one notices the little woman who is weak, sick, and shy. Gingerly, but purposefully, she is pressing her way through the crowd with steely determination. When she reaches out in faith, key part, in faith, to touch the hem of Jesus' garment, her bleeding is instantaneously stopped. In addition to a physical miracle, it was an emotional and spiritual miracle. This woman needed what all hurting people need, help and hope. Jesus offered her both. And as we pattern our lives after Jesus, he brings us people who hurt so that we can offer help and hope. How are you performing on that? How am I performing on that? In my life, God puts people in my life, gives me opportunities to offer help and hope, which is Jesus, to people that I see hurting. How well do I do pointing them to the help and the hope that they're looking for? The next heading says, we need to give hurting people the addition of our presence. The desperate woman had chronic menstrual disorder. She'd been bleeding for 12 years. She was physically exhausted, socially ostracized, and mentally drained. She had sought help, but had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. The Talmud, an ancient Jewish writing, gives 11 different cures for the condition this woman had. She had tried every one of them, and nothing had happened. That's just like we said a minute ago. We all have a God-spaced hole in our heart that, whether you realize it or not, you're trying to fill. If you're trying to fill it with alcohol, if you're trying to fill it with drugs, if you're trying to fill it with sex, if you're trying to fill it with a job, if you're trying to fill it with money, with power, whatever you're trying to fill it with. Here it says the ancient document had 11 different cures for the condition this woman had, and she'd tried all of them and nothing helped. That's because, just like us with sin, when sin is our condition, we can try all those things. Alcohol can camouflage it for a little while. Drugs can camouflage it for a little while. Power can camouflage it for a little while. All these sports, our family, whatever we put in that, try to put in that hole, might camouflage for a little while, but it's never going to cure what's really ailing us, which is a sin problem. It says, on top of all this, she was financially bankrupt. We see that. The one who loses everything trying to feel something that only God can feel. She had spent all she had, yet every day she woke up to a body that no one wanted. Every day she woke up to a life that was lonely. I believe the greatest pain this woman suffered was the pain of isolation. Have you ever hit rock bottom and found yourself where you feel like nobody wants to be around you? Nobody wants to have anything to do with you. You've gone so far that it's just you and your mind. And that's a scary place, because my mind, just me and my mind get together, it gets scary. But once I got saved, my wife can leave me, my kids can leave me. I can be in this same place where I'm lonely, where I'm in a sense in an isolation, but there's one who will never leave me, and that's the Spirit of God. As long as I'm His, He will never leave me. I can find myself rock bottom. I can lose my job today. My house can catch on, just like Job. All these things can happen, but I have something that will stick closer to me than a brother. It's what the Bible says. It'll stick closer to him than a brother. And He'll never leave me, never forsake me. She didn't need a cure. She needed compassion. She needed the presence of someone in her life who was willing to take time out of their busy schedule to let her know, I care about you, and I'll be here to help you. That's what Jesus is. He cares. He wants to help. He's not going to leave you. He wants to do all these things. There are people all around us like this woman. They are made fun of, ridiculed, isolated, and they need someone's presence in their life. Okay. This is talking to the church there, I believe, talking to the church. They need someone. We need to reach out to those who are hurting. We need to reach out to those who are at rock bottom and let them know that someone cares. And it's not, hey, maybe it is Jeremy genuinely cares, but at the end of the day, that's not who I'm trying to reach out to you and tell you about. I can tell you all about me from January 7th, 1981 up, and that's going to get you nowhere. But I know somebody else who cares, and I can tell you about him. And if you then get to know him on a one-to-one personal level, on a I'm saved, washed by the blood of the Lamb level, you ain't going to need Jeremy no more. You've got all you're going to need. And are your problems going to go away? Okay, this woman, it said, was healed immediately. Okay, I can't promise you that all your problems go away. If you're dirt poor broke, filing bankruptcy, and in this position and come to salvation, you're probably going to still be dirt poor broke and in bankruptcy. But you don't have to go through it alone. You have somebody who's going to provide, because the Bible also says that he's never seen the righteous forsaken or begging bread. Okay? It's no bed of roses. There's no miracle pill that's going to make everything go away. But it sure is a whole lot easier to walk through this crazy, messed up world with a hope, knowing that this isn't what I'm looking forward to. This isn't what I have. This is nothing. I'm looking forward to a hope, to a lively hope, to a sure hope, to a real hope at a later day, maybe tomorrow, maybe 10 years, maybe 100 years from now, whenever, that I will be with the one who's never left me here, who's filled that hole in my heart that I've tried to fill with drugs and alcohol and power and money and all those things. I feel like I'm way off topic, just rambling this time. But moving on, we need to give hurting people the attention of our minds. Jesus is on his way to help the dying daughter of a man named Jairus, a synagogue ruler, who was the most important man in the community. Everybody wanted to get close to Jesus, but Jairus had first dibs. No one wanted to cross him. One word from him and you could be kicked out of the synagogue, blacklisted. What are the odds that Jesus would interrupt an urgent mission with the most important man in the community to help a financially bankrupt social outcast like this woman? If this crowd had found out who she was, they would have fled from her because she was considered unclean. She decided to take that risk because somebody, listen to this, she decided to take that risk because somebody had told her about Jesus. Somebody had to tell you about Jesus if you're saved. If you're not, we need to be telling you about Jesus. Somebody told her about Jesus. Somebody had cared enough to say to her, I know somebody who can help you. And that made me go back to one of my favorite books of the Bible, Ruth. And it made me think about Ruth, who was a Moabite. She served other gods. But she was married to one of Naomi's sons. And she, through experience, watched Naomi lose her husband, watched Naomi lose her other son, plus the son that she was married to. Watched all these bad things happen to Naomi, who was a Hebrew, an Israelite, who served the living God. And when it was just Naomi and her sister-in-law, who I can't pronounce her name, and Naomi, Ruth, and her sister, Ruth's sister-in-law, who I can't pronounce her name. Naomi got them together and told them to go back to your people, go back to your gods, go back to your land, who you know, I'm going back to Israel. And the sister-in-law went back. But Ruth saw something in Naomi. Apparently, Naomi had lived a life, had told her through the way she lived about a man, well, not a man named Jesus yet came yet, but had told her about her God. She had seen it. She had seen the faith she had and what her faith did and how her faith seen her through all these hard times. And she said, I'm not going back. I don't know exactly what you got, but whatever you got, I want a piece of it. And that's how we're supposed to live our life. We're supposed to share Jesus with these that are hurting, these that are downtrodden. But if we go around all downtrodden and grumpy and looking like we have no hope, why would they want what we have? Why would this woman with this condition seek out to reach just to touch the hem of Jesus's garment if everybody or the person who told her about him was no better than her, that was in the same condition anyway? She believed them because she reached out and touched the hem of Jesus's garment. Whenever his garment is touched, whether by the hand of a severely anemic woman in Galilee or by the pleas of a homeless person near you today, Jesus stops. Jesus responds. Jesus lets that hurting person know you are not unimportant because of what you don't have. Instead, you are important because of who you are. Everyone's important in the eyes of Jesus. Last heading here, and we'll finish up. Part 43 says, we need to give hurting people the affection of our hearts. When this woman touched Jesus Christ, two things happened that had never happened before in the Bible and never happened again in the Bible. First, Jesus healed someone seemingly unaware. When this woman touched the hem of his garment, power was automatically and instantaneously released. What triggered this help was her need. That's the way God operates. Also, this is the only time anywhere that Jesus addresses any woman as daughter. Most likely, this woman couldn't remember the last time anyone had offered a kind word to her. When have we offered a kind word? Just a kind word sometimes goes a lot further than we can even imagine. She could not remember the last time anybody looked at her with anything but dismay and disgust. Yet, with a look of love that only Jesus could give, he tenderly calls her daughter. Leo Tolstoy, the great Russian writer, tells of the time he was walking down the street and passed a beggar. He reached into his pocket to get the beggar some money, but his pocket was empty. He felt bad. Rather than just ignore the man and keep walking, he turned to the man and said, "I'm so sorry, my brother, that I don't have anything to give you." The beggar's face widened into a smile the size of a half moon. He said, "Mister, you have given me more than I could ever have asked for. You called me brother." Sometimes people that are hurting just want us to reach out and let them know we care, let them know we love them. That kind of makes me think of the man that was there when, James and John or Peter and John over in Acts walked by and they said, "Silver and gold have I none, but what I have, I give to you in the name of Jesus. Rise up and walk." Okay, I don't have a lot of money to give people. I really don't have a whole lot of time. My life seems like it's busy, but I could give more time. I could give a kind word. I could acknowledge. There's a lot of things we can do. It's not about fame and fortune and big money and all that. It's about letting people know that they're loved. Without love, we have nothing. Paul wrote that. I'm reading a book on Paul. Paul wrote all these great things. We can do all these great things, but without love, it doesn't amount to a hill of beans. Final part here. It says, you and I are called to do the same, to minister the grace, the love, and the power of Jesus Christ. We're called to be the hem of his garment. We're called to extend Christ's love to others, to show them that there is a hope, to show them that there is something better. That's part 43. Always available, always accessible. Part 44 we'll do next go round. Part 44 is titled Our Best Friend. And if you've been reading along, I know my mama's got the book. Some of you may be reading the scriptures to kind of see where we're going. But our best friend, the main scripture comes from Luke chapter 19, verses 1 through 10. And then there's Luke chapter 7, verses 31 through 34. Matthew chapter 9, verse 9 through 13. 1 Timothy chapter 1, verse 12 through 17. Ooh, little book here in the Old Testament. You might have to dig to find this one. Micah chapter 4, verses 6 and 7. Part 44 will be Our Best Friend. So, leave you with, I've been leaving, it seems like, with a thought or a challenge, and let's end part 43 with a challenge to each of you to not just the easy ones. It's easy to share the gospel with somebody who's easy to talk to or we're friends with sometimes. My green screen just disappeared, y'all. I feel like the Wizard of Oz here. I just got a good look here. it's easy sometimes for all these things to share. But I challenge each of us to reach out to somebody we typically wouldn't reach out to. Reach out to someone who maybe we know is going through a problem or hurting, and let's extend grace, let's extend mercy, but most importantly, let's extend God's love and let them know that somebody cares. And next time we will do part 44, and maybe Zoom won't do all this crazy stuff it's done today. So we'll see you all next time.